Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the deadlift and some of the reasons why I think it's important to maintain a flat back while we're deadlifting. Uh, Before we get into the specifics of it, I want to throw out a disclaimer that I am not an expert on the spine or biomechanics. These are just some general ideas and tips that I've gathered from reading other people's research who are experts and my years of lifting and my years of coaching. If you do want to get into more specifics, I would recommend checking out Chris Duffin's stuff and Dr. Stuart McGill's literature. They have a lot of great information on the spine and how it relates to sports performance and powerlifting and stuff like that. So here I have a crappy illustration, but hopefully it makes it easier to understand the ideas that I'm talking about and why it's so important to keep your back flat in the deadlift. The first idea that I want to talk about is the idea of the hip hinge. Right here we have a hinge just like you would see on any door in your house. And when we're deadlifting, we're creating that hinge on our hips. So when we lift with a rounded lower back, we're moving that hinge not so much on our hips anymore, but it's now on our lower back. The issue with this is that puts the spine through flexion and then back into neutral and then through flexion again as we're going through our repetitions. So the spine and the discs in between each vertebrae are bending and then straightening out, then bending, then straightening out. And this potentially over time with enough weight and enough repetitions can increase the chance that you have some type of disc bulge or some type of spine related injury. So what we want to do to keep our spine as safe as possible is create this hinge but on our hips. That way the flexion and the movement is going on in our hips where it's supposed to be and not in the spine. When we create that hinge on our hips, we're lifting with our glutes, with our hamstrings and our quads, and the lower back is still being used a lot, but it's being used in a stabilizing role and not necessarily a moving the weight role. So that's one big reason why we want to try and keep that back flat. The second reason is that when we start out like this but progress through the lift and get into this position, we're losing energy through our back. Energy that's supposed to go from the hips directly to the bar so that that bar can come off the ground and we can lift that weight. It's being lost in our back as it rounds. So if you're starting with a slightly rounded back, that's not as big a deal. But if you're starting like this and then as you progress through the lift your back rounds, that is an issue because you're essentially losing energy, and that's energy that could be going into the bar and you could potentially be leaving pounds on the platform. The third issue is that when we lift with a rounded lower back, our upper back tends to round. And what happens is when we get this weight up and we get to close to locking out the lift, our upper back is still rounded. And if you watch a lot of deadlifting videos, where do lots of people miss the lift? They miss it right before the lockout. And that's because their upper back is rounded, and essentially they're trying to complete the lift, which might be 400, 500, 600 pounds, with just the muscles in their upper back. If we keep this back angle throughout the lift, as we get to the top, we're still going to be able to use the muscles in our legs and in our hips to finish the lift as opposed to in just our upper back. So those are some of the main reasons why you want to keep your back flat as you are deadlifting. If you're not quite sure how you can improve your form, if your back is rounding in the deadlift and you want to make it straighter but you're not sure how, go back and check out my previous video, Your Form Sucks, and we talk about some ideas that ought to help you out when you're trying to correct your form. If you guys like this video, please leave a like, subscribe so that you can stay tuned for future videos. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to see future videos on, please leave a comment below and let me know. Thanks.